What's going on, everybody? Dev Del Molino from the 503, back here with another review. This time around we are taking a look at the new SZA album. But first, before I say anything about this album, I have to give a shout out and a strong rest in peace to a legend, Prodigy. 50% of the rap group, the infamous rap group Mobb Deep, has passed away at the age of 42, way too soon. And you know, all anyone really needs to see is the amount of condolences and tributes that have poured out of the internet in the last 48 hours to see what you really meant to this community. So, P, we will forever recognize your greatness as an MC, as a member of this genre, and for a lot of people, as they tell it, you are a great friend, mentor, and overall, and most importantly, a great person. So, thank you for everything that you have brought to this beautiful art form and culture that is hip-hop, and please rest easy. We really do miss you already, and we will miss you for years to come. Anyways, we are here today to review an album, and today that album is Ctrl, or CTRL, by SZA, or SZA. That's not how you say it, but whatever. SZA is a TDE, Top Dog Entertainment affiliate, along the likes of Kendrick Lamar, Absol, and Schoolboy Q, as well as J-Rock. Now, she was signed to the record label at or around the same time as Isaiah Rashad, and they were kind of presented as, you know, the second generation of this camp. Also at or around the same time of the signing was when she dropped her most recent EP, as she calls it. It's definitely an album's worth of material. She was and is still working in a style that fits kind of the contemporary scene of R&B music. Now, on this last album, SZA was taking a very minimalistic and machine-made approach to this general sound. And I think this tinge that she's brought to this corner of the music industry has paid off really well. She really has introduced herself to a wide array of music fans with this album and all the features that she's done since then, but also has gained a very core group cult following, if you will. But even I will say on that album, she did leave a lot of room for improvement. Again, in going back to her minimalistic aesthetic, for a handful of the records on that album, that sound hits the nail right on the head, which is why I was a fan from my first listen forward, despite the fact that on some of the tracks where the groove or the melody or the overall song doesn't pop off the same way, these songs can end up sounding unfinished, rough, half-baked. A lot of these instrumentals that she was going over were very synthetic, have all the bells and whistles on top of them. I think a lot of the songs relied on those instrumentals a little too much. But in moving forward into this next album, Ctrl, I feel like SZA has shored up a lot of the issues that I had with the previous album, and it really all starts with the overall sound and approach that she decided to take to this effort. This time around, the production is a lot more organic, and the element of live percussion finds itself to be kind of a staple in a lot of the material on this album as well. Now, that's one great element of this album, and on the other side of the coin, SZA finds herself being the star of the show at almost every single point throughout the duration of this album. And I love how this album is bookended with the first and last song in this LP being these very bare and unplugged ballads. The reason I like these tracks so much is because everything is stripped away, and all we have to pay attention to and illuminate is SZA's singing ability, her vocal presence, and her overall identity on each of these songs. And there's a huge portion of this album's sound dedicated to portraying SZA as sort of the Barbie of her own playhouse. She's pretty, she's vulnerable, sexy, funky, she's pop, she's R&B, she's neo-soul, she's literally whatever she wants to be. And the way that she embraces her autonomy really brings about a lot of character on this LP front to back. I think a song like Drew Barrymore is a track that brings a lot of what I was just mentioning kind of out into the light. SZA's playing between a few genres here, but really brings everything together for such a mature sound. All the elements of her personality are culminating for a passionate performance on top of this really well laid down track. You know, overall, this song didn't make it to my list of very, very favorites on this album, but in terms of merit, I would definitively say that this is the best song on the album and one of her best, period. Now, moving into my favorite songs on this album, number one, and how could it not be, Doves in the Wind is so good. The instrumental here is two parts, both really sexy and really hypnotic. The topic of discussion is the female anatomy, and when SZA comes on, she's in charge, she plays hard to get, she really embraces the sexy nature of this instrumental and brings it to the forefront. Then the verses switch over, Kendrick grabs the reins, and then he is really embracing that hypnotic side of the instrumental that I mentioned and bringing that to the forefront. And he starts rapping about the almost intoxicating effect that the female anatomy tends to have on the fair sex. He starts moving his voice all over the place, and all of a sudden this track goes from sexy to completely woozy and delusional. I think this track is stellar. There's so much to enjoy outside of what is already at face value a dope beat with killer samples. What we have here is two really dope artists coming together to make a real collaboration with chemistry involved. Love Galore is another track that I really think just speaks for itself in terms of how good it is. The song's been doing well commercially, and I think this is another moment of really solid collaboration between her and this time Travis Scott. The reason I like this collab so much is because in the lyrics, the way they sing, and even the visuals in the music video, her and Travis are very convincing of this relationship that they are disputing with in the song. Go Gina is another really cool track on this LP, just kind of keeps itself in its own pocket. The instrumental is classic from the get-go. It's boom bappy, it's pretty laid back. There's a sample looped in that sounds like a bicycle bell on top of the track that I think is a nice touch. The only real knock I have against this song is that it's a little short, and I wish it would expand upon itself just a tad more than it does. Now for my relatively short list of critiques on this album. Now the rest of the album is either fine or good or great, and there's really only two tracks on here that I'm just not feeling. That would be Garden and the SZA Rashad assisted Pretty Little Birds. Now with Garden specifically, one of the biggest issues I have with that track is the musical hook. The instrumental here, and specifically the drums, fail to distinctify the chorus from the bridge and the bridge from the verses. It's really just an underwhelming transition, and it doesn't force the listener to pay attention to that chorus, which in most cases really should be the cornerstone of any song. Things start getting a little bit better when SZA starts putting her singing chops on display, but overall this track just comes off flat and awkward. And for Pretty Little Birds, I would say that this is the first time that I haven't thoroughly enjoyed a SZA and SZA Rashad collab, which sucks because when it comes to their projects, I'm always looking forward to what they're gonna do with one another. But this is just another flat track to me. It's atmospheric to the point of being boring. The instrumental is mostly just a lengthy 808 pulsating across the entirety of the beat. There are some horns that come in and out of this track, but again, atmospheric to a point where they just sound like they are floating in midair or floating in space. They don't really spice the track up as much as they just sound like an awkward addition to the track. And then Zay doesn't really bring anything to this track either. His input on the track sounds very generic. I think the songs that they have knocked out of the park together typically have better melodies, better choruses, and better chemistry between the two of them, also something that you don't really see on this track. So in final, I would say that I do really like this album. I just feel like on this album she's found a sound that fits for her and brings a lot of the great things about her character and about her artistry to the table in spades. In describing it, I would say that this sound overall is organic, again, going back into a lot of the live sounds that play in and out of the album. I would also use the word sovereign to describe the constant feeling on this record that we are in SZA's world, playing by SZA's rules, and that she has full ownership of everything that's being presented to us in the music. And overall, I'm really excited to see what SZA does from here on out. So yeah, as always, please let me know what you guys are thinking on this album. It sounds like a lot of people enjoyed this about as much as I did. Per usual, please like, follow, subscribe, comment, all the good stuff on this particular video and my channel, the Dev Del Molino channel that is. Instagram 40oz.of.dev, Twitter at Dev Del Molino, YouTube Dev Del Molino. I'm Dev Del Molino. Thanks for watching Dev Del Molino, and yeah, have a nice day.